Hello?
Hello, hello.
Yeah, there we have. Technical issues as usual. And I'm a one-man team at the moment.
Grab that initiative.
Yeah, that happens. Even on broadcasts where I've had quite a few people, technical issues pop up. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Just a quick question. Do you have somebody that is, you know, moderating the chat and so on together with you on your stream, so you do it mostly solo?
For me, I've got a couple of moderators. They're my regulars who kind of help out, but I do a lot of what I do solo.
Yeah, yeah. Now, let's see if I can... Okay, I have here just a quick... For my viewers, I just want to briefly present you. So this is CHARM3R. The true name or his full name is Darick Oswalt, and I put here in the info if you're also watching the stream. Age I put 25 ish, and and you can decide if you want to explain that more or not. We'll just keep that between us. And you are a caster or commentator, esports commentator, which I find a really exciting thing to do or be. And you're also a database management and a teacher. So please, CHARM3R, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I've been playing card games for almost my entire life. I learned how to count by keeping score for my grandparents when they played euchre, and then they taught me how to play like poker at a young age, and very quickly found a lot of very physical card games. So Magic when it launched, Marvel Overpower, went through the Pokemon thing, and then in my teens and early 20s I worked for a local comic and gaming shop, and my job there was essentially like running the entire gaming side of the house. So anytime that a new card game came up, like I had to learn it and teach it to people. So card games have been a big part of my life. Personal life, as you said, right now I work in IT. I specialize in like database administration, data analytics, data governance. It kind of flip-flops. I do also teach for a local college at night because I don't believe in sleeping apparently, and I like keeping myself busy.
Highly overrated.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, when I was playing some digital card games, I said to myself, you know, hey, I play video games and I want to kind of like recreate that experience that I had when I was younger, where you'd get with a bunch of buddies and sit around and play games. So I started streaming on Twitch. Found a home about 2 years ago streaming The Elder Scrolls Legends because I got into the beta for that. That's been the game I've been primarily streaming for the last couple years, and as a result, Bethesda was kind enough to allow me to be a caster for their Master Series. Go to LA on weekends and do broadcasting there. I went to QuakeCon and did their live events. I've been to PAX East and PAX West for their Bethesda days for them. And that's really kind of pushed me, I guess, forward for for the broadcasting side of things. So when I was at PAX West, I had a wonderful meeting with Bruno and a couple of the other devs, and we talked a bit, and he invited me to the closed beta for Artifact, and I've been playing it a lot. I love it. It's a very different game than a lot of the other card games that are out right now. Thoroughly enjoying it. So I have been making some content. I think I have like 2 YouTube videos up right now, but I'm making a bunch of content so that when the NDA drops, I can kind of blast that. And playing in these tournaments. And yeah, it's going well. I'm going to go ahead and post a link in your chat if I'm not blocked by a bot or something. In case you want to see the deck I drafted. So one of the cool things, nope, says it deleted.
Wait. I'm not so good at moderating. Wait, I think I can make you a mod or something. That is what I need to do.
If that doesn't work, I can just send it to you and you can repost it. But in case people were curious, this is what I've drafted for the first phase.
Okay. I would love to post it. So you can, if you can send it maybe on the Discord or wait. I can. Here it is. Okay, let's see. I will try and. Okay, cool. So you can do it like. I was looking for something like this where you can share decks and something like. Now let's see. I will post it here on Twitch, so you have it here, guys. So you can click on this link. So this is the deck you have played now, or you're using? Yep. Yeah, okay.
This is what I'm using today, because today was a draft event. So this is what I ended up drafting. It's a very aggressive deck. I kind of fell into it because of my early hero choices. I got 2 Legion Commanders and a Phantom Assassin. They're all fantastic.
Okay.
I was not presented with many like late game top end options.
Nope.
So this is very much a like get underneath your opponent to try to win fast draft. And that's,
I love that. I love aggressive decks. In Hearthstone, I was much more lean towards. I tried control, you know, exhaust and fatigue decks. It wasn't my style.
Yeah, it's not really my style to be hyper aggressive like this, but it was what was presented to me. I did win the first round. I won 2-1 against a very skilled opponent. Our games were very close. Both of my wins actually came from killing the Ancient. So I know there's a lot of questions about you know, whether or not it's always you just win 2 lanes.
Yeah.
It is the most common way that you win, but it is not the only way that you win. So yeah, both of my wins were actually because I did not have the late game that my opponent had. He had like Thunderhide Pax and Horn of the Alpha and a bunch of stuff where he could over time dominate. So early on, I was winning some trades to kind of snowball, and then I closed it out in a single lane both times.
Nice.
The one game I dropped was also very close, but I was about 5 or 10 damage short of closing that one out. And both the games that I won, it's interesting how the lanes work, right? So like the game 3 when I won because I was going to kill the Ancient in lane 2, and my opponent would have got the second tower in lane 3. But if you meet win conditions, then the game ends immediately. So it's just a, you know, an interesting way that the order of operations for Artifact works, right? So one of the interesting things to me about the game is that not all lanes are created equal. Like they all have different pros and cons to them. But even though they're not all created equal, you also can't like all in on trying to win something if the randomization parts of the game don't allow it, right? So my opponent had a sniper, for example, and so he prioritizes lane 1 a little bit more because once you get to 7 mana and beyond, his Assassinate can take out anything across the board if he's got initiative in lane 1. I would have loved to deny that from my opponent. Unfortunately, like I had no creeps that spawned there. I had a bad flop, so my hero died to a bristleback right away. There was no way in game 3 I could contest that, right?
So like, you have to adapt. Yes.
So even though I'm like, hey, you know, lane 1 is often considered important, game mechanics are always more important, right? So you have to recognize that that is something that you just kind of have to give up on.
What I'm seeing from, I'm not in beta. I would love to get hands on the game and just, you know, throw into it and start, you know, testing out different things. But there's so many layers. There's so many ways, as you said, to adapt and change strategies and approach. And one thing I have been wanting to ask you guys, that is okay, maybe not so much in draft, but in constructed, the art of bluffing, or setting up the board to misleading the opponent. How big of a factor is that at the moment? Or is it just something that we will see evolve and see more of later on? You know, everybody's just getting comfortable with the mechanics and the cards and so on. Or what is your opinion on that?
I think it happens a lot more in constructed, because in constructed you have greater consistency for the most part, right? So you know, you go into things knowing what your opponent's deck list either is, if you can see it, or in cases where you can't see it, then you can make pretty good, you know, educated guesses, right? And so if you're trying to play around Annihilation, for example, that's a lot easier to take into consideration in a constructed game because they're running 3 of them in a 40 card deck, and so after a certain number of draws, you're pretty confident whether they have one or not. Whereas in draft, if they have like 1 Annihilation, there's a chance they have it and a chance they don't. Like my opponent this first round, for example, had 1 gank in his deck, but he had it on curve to snipe, you know, a key hero every game against me. But it's not the sort of thing that he can necessarily bluff or I can play around because it's a one of. So draft is a little bit less bluffing. The only time that you see, I think, more bluffing is when you know that you have a lot of a certain card in a deck, like there's a density. So for example, my draft, I've got 2 Legion commanders, so I have 6 duels.
Yep.
So a lot of times I can bluff having a duel and still get away with it, just because having 6 of them in there, my opponent is probably thinking, okay, he's going to have a duel. Yeah. So it does kind of depend on the mode and what the results of the mode are, right? Yeah, like if your opponent has something just ridiculous, like 3 Lunas. Well, if they have 3 Lunas, you just concede anyway. But yeah, it has a lot to do with card density in the deck and whether or not, you know, they've played one. So obviously you're keeping track of the card your opponents play. So, you know, if they've got 3 of a card in their deck and they've played 2 of them, and now you can start doing mental math there as well.
Yeah. How much does that play in the card counting or the card memory and planning 2 or 3 turns? Are you able now to plan 3 turns ahead, or are you constantly reacting and to the opponent? Or
see, that's one of the things I really like about Artifact, is that it requires you to plan ahead, but then they throw a bunch of stuff at you that can totally change.
You just have to react. Yes. Yeah.
You know, in one of the interviews, Richard Garfield described it as fencing on quicksand or something, fencing on a beach or sand or whatever, something to that effect. And that's 100% the way that I would describe it, because, for example, this last round, right? Like I was playing against my opponent, he had a sniper. So when mana turn 7 comes around, you're thinking to yourself, if he has Assassinate, what does this do for me and how do I try to plan around it? And you'll start thinking about that when you're on like mana turn 5. The problem is that in between there, I'm going to play cards, my opponent's going to play cards, and we're going to have not 1 but 2 hero deployments and melee creep randomizations. Yeah. So I might in my head think like I need to overcommit to this 1 lane to overcompensate because I think this is the hero that's going to get assassinated. Yep. But then if I get no melee creep spawns that help me out there, then maybe that's not the correct play anymore. So you're thinking ahead for what you would consider to be like very clutch, very turn point plays, but you also have to stay flexible and adaptive in your game plan to say, hey, things went wrong. Yep. You know, now this is what I do. Yeah. So it rewards you for thinking ahead, and then it also punches you in the gut for trying to think too far ahead.
Yes, overthinking the whole thing. Yes. If I don't know who are watching this, maybe there are a lot of people that are just watching this for the first time. But for those of the people that are somewhat familiar with the game and the mechanism, do you have an advice, or do you have a mental checklist? Every time for each turn that you go through, what you are evaluating and looking for and thinking through the whole game, or is it just like not a mess, but do you have a checklist, a mental list that you always go through in your head when you are considering moves and planning?
Yeah, there is a checklist, and it's going to depend on like which phase of the game you're in as well, and what your opponent's deck looks like. Yeah. So like in a constructed game, for example, you're always, if you're playing against Zeus, you're doing that mental checklist of on mana turn 7, what heroes are going to be at 4 or less health, and how do I plan around that? Yeah. Mana turn 6, if you're playing against Phantom Assassin, it's the same thing with coup de grace, right? Yep. Typically, the very first things you consider are the things that can outright eliminate one of your heroes, because not only is eliminating heroes essentially pulling resources off of the board for you, right? It slows down your tempo, but it also attacks your mana base, if you will. So if you're somebody who's coming from like Magic the Gathering, killing a hero is not just like killing a creature, but it's also like destroying your lands. If they kill a hero and it's your only one of that color in a lane, then you're locked out of a color. So to me, those are the big immediate mental checklists are, if my opponent attacks one of my heroes, what cards does that lock me out of, and how important is that, right? Yep. So that's like the first part. Typically, like I said, it depends on the phase, because then there's also like hero deployment, right? During hero deployment, you have this mental checklist of what are the lanes I'm most likely to win, what is the safe lane to abandon, but then also you have to consider things like what is, again, because your heroes are your mana base, if you will, your resource. What is it going to do to me if I double stack heroes of the same color, right? If you're running a 3-2 split like I am, I've got 2 black heroes in this draft. it's very dangerous for me to put both of my black heroes in the same lane. That doesn't mean that I won't ever do it. Sometimes it is the right play, but it's a very dangerous thing because now that means I don't have access to black cards during any other lanes as far as placement. So there's an awful lot of, there is a checklist, right? There's an awful lot of things you're considering, and it kind of depends on the phase and what you're playing against.
Yes, yes. I have also one question for you. You know, you are a player, you're a beta tester, and you have been making some content. By the way, I really like the content you are making, so keep that up when you can. And streamer or player versus a caster or commentator, because you are experiencing both parts at the moment. How? Which part do you enjoy more? If I can, you don't have to have a favorite, or is there some part of it that you are leaning more towards?
I don't know if I would say that I'm leaning more towards. They're both very similar, and then they both give you different kinds of gratification. Yeah. So they're both similar in that I get to talk about something that I'm passionate about and that I love, right? Whether it's casting / commentating or streaming, you know, either way, I get to essentially geek out in public about things that I really enjoy. Yes. But when you're like casting and commentating, you really feel like you are invested, I guess, in the game, right? Like, because you are almost like a promoter of sorts. Yeah. There is
there's a burden on your shoulder that you don't have as a gamer.
I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a burden, but there's also like a sense of gratification because you feel like you're really doing your part to help give back to something that you love, right? If I do love it, and I really do love the game, I think it's really well done, then I feel great about like doing my part to give back. It's almost like a community service of sorts. Yeah. Whereas with streaming, the part that I really enjoy there is that I enjoy interaction with chat and viewers. It, to me, as somebody who enjoys teaching, being able to stream and then answer people's questions, talk about, you know, my thoughts, right, my process for when I'm playing the game and things like that. That's like a learning experience that in many ways mimics the same enjoyment that I get out of the classroom. And so they both, while requiring a very similar skill set, give me a different sense of gratification. So it's hard for me to pick one over the other because they each fulfill a different need.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Did you record your gameplay? Just will you be seeing a video, or are you allowed to you know, show the video from your game, or how does that work?
So that's kind of a tricky one.
Yeah, the NDA.
Yeah. So we're allowed to record certain things in the current build of the client that we can release later on for the NDA. But for this particular event, we are allowed to restream, as they called it. So essentially what you're doing, the main broadcast, we can like comment over top of that. But they did ask us not to like stream or record our own personal games for this one. And also there is a little bit of the until things are more public, right? Yep. There are some people that are in the closed beta that just kind of don't want people to know exactly how much time they're investing in it.
I understand.
Right? So we have to abide kind of like by their privacy and so forth. So I'm not recording these games.
No, okay. What are your plans for the game, your channel, and further on? Let's say, do you have a plan for the next 1 year, or are you talking to people about some projects or events or something like that?
Yeah, I am. It's not anything that I can say public yet, but probably in the next week or two. But I mean, as far as like my channel, I'm going to be streaming a lot when the NDA is lifted because I'm just excited about the game and I want to share it with people. There's going to be a bunch of YouTube content that I'm going to publish. You know, I work not one job but 2 jobs outside of my content creation, so I'm gonna do as much artifact stuff as I can, and if it opens up opportunities, then I might consider you know, dropping one job and doing a little bit more of this. We'll kind of see where it takes me. Yep. But
there's several balls you have to juggle. To a private aspect life, do you have someone in the family that is looking up to his father and maybe wondering about if he or she would enter into your footsteps or shoes? aspiring something?
Kind of. So I have 2 children. One is 5 and in kindergarten, and my other is 2.5. And my 5-year-old knows that I stream and I'm on YouTube, and he loves it. But he says that he wants to be a YouTuber, but he wants to play Fortnite like every other kid on the planet.
He's 5 years old. Yeah. You remember when everybody wanted to be a policeman or a firefighter? Now I have seen this.
It was astronaut. That was the big one.
Yeah, astronaut. My son, he wanted to be an astronaut, and I went very philosophical and said, okay, son, we live in Iceland. So you can't be an astronaut because you need to go to NASA. But when you are getting old enough, you could be a space pilot. And I emphasized space pilot. What is that? You know, those are the guys, the men and the women that fly out into the space. And I was indicating the words in airlines and, you know, the space tourism. And it's like, oh, I can be a space pilot. So he was heavily into that in several years. But now he wants to be a lawyer. While my younger children, they have this, they are the gaming YouTube generation now, the streamer. Kids today, they look up to, you know, we are kind of you and, okay, maybe not me because I'm so old, I'm a dinosaur, but, you know, like Ninja and other, you know, cool people out there on Twitch, they are the new rock stars. Are you feeling these vibes in your community, you know, on your workplace? Are people talking more about streaming and gaming, becoming mainstream? And, you know, we're not just nerd anymore. We are, you know, we are the beacons of hope.
No, not in my workplace. So, like, I work for my local state government, and there's a lot of, I would say more traditional folks there. Yeah. So a couple of my coworkers know what I do, and my boss knows what I do, the director, because, like, I have to tell her when I'm traveling. Yep. But, like, outside of that, it's not, you know, I don't hide it at work, but...
No, I understand.
Nobody really has an interest. It's a bit of an overcrowd that I work with. So
it has been for me. It has been, you know, I have been somewhat quiet about it, you know, a few years earlier, but now it's becoming more. I feel more and more comfortable about. Yeah, I'm a streamer, you know, but you're getting close to 50. Yeah, and what? So it's interesting to see how the things are changing and society is transforming into, you know, people are watching less TV and they are consuming more on the mobile phones, and streaming is becoming more of a media where people, you know, turn to than maybe traditional TV. That's interesting to see that that happen. It definitely is. Are you going to play some more games now? What game or opponent is next up for you?
I won't know which opponent is up next. They have to wait till the first round ends because day one is Swiss. Yeah. And there's still some people playing, but I will probably jump out here soon because it's looking, as I'm kind of mousing through the games here, it's looking like there's only a very small handful of people left and they're all in game 3. So I feel like round 2 is going to be starting here soon. We wind this up. Yep. You have to prepare for that. Well, Charmer, or I should just say Darick, it has been a pleasure and a privilege having you on my stream. I love doing things like this, so I might later hit you up. And well, anyway, but I wish you the best of luck in this tournament and in your project, your channel, and in everything. And yeah, Thanks for giving me an outlet to nerd out. I'm just really excited that we can finally start talking about this stuff.
Yes, I look forward to when the games comes in beta. I will be waking up in 4 in the morning and play. Nah, I will not do that, but I will play the game. So I have a deeper sense for what I'm talking on the stream and not just, you know, rephrasing other you know, gamers' opinions. I'm getting a deeper understanding of the game, but not having the game is limiting. Of course it is, but this will be fun. This will be fun, definitely. Okay, some final words or something before you leave?
Wish me luck. I'm gonna need it.
Yes. Okay, we wish you, me and the other gamers here, we wish you the best of luck, Darick. Yes, and thank you. I think that the salt level was really low.
Well, yeah, I won this round. That's why I was like, maybe I should help it now.
That was the reason. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well. Okay. Over and out, and good luck, Darick. And thank you for joining.
Have a good show.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.